Florida, Mr. Stubbe is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sauer, earlier this week, I questioned HHS Secretary Becerra before the Ways and Means Committee, and I asked him about a report put out by a private research organization called Cochrane that found masks may not be effective in preventing COVID. That same organization did an about-face a few weeks later. Like on January, they issued the report finding there was no scientific evidence or proof that masks worked, and then on March 10th, they issued a report that basically said, well, what we said before was not fully accurate. Secretary Becerra claimed that he had no knowledge of HHS or anyone in the administration pressuring Cochrane to withdraw their findings, and I specifically asked him that. He was under oath. I specifically asked him if he knew if anybody in HHS had information as it related to that. From your experience, has HHS pressured private organizations to take certain stances and censor information regarding COVID?
Yes, our evidence includes pretty extensive emails involving senior HHS officials, including within the Office of the Secretary, involved in these kinds of pressure campaigns to engage in censorship. We also have extensive evidence of sub-agencies within HHS, which is described in some detail in my written testimony, including NIAID, NIH, and the CDC.
Well, and the Biden administration, in these emails, much to the chagrin of my colleagues on the other side who say there's no evidence that Mr. Flattery was working with Facebook. I mean, these emails that you put are actually part of your statement today. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I mean, you have conversations here about content. You have conversations here about vaccines. You have Facebook sharing attachments and research with Mr. Flattery. You have Mr. Flattery telling them, I think, like actually telling them what Facebook should be doing. And I'll just read a quick excerpt, and again, this is in the materials that you provided the committee. Generally, I think some combo of the following would be effective. Some kind of thing that puts the news in context if folks have seen it, like COVID news panel. I mean, he's directing Facebook of how they should promulgate information, which I would say is disinformation, but their opinion on certain information. And it's right there in your testimony that you've given here today. Can you just like expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Representative. We see email after email after email from the White House, from Mr. Flaherty, pressuring specifically Facebook, but also other social media platforms to take down disfavored viewpoints. And the emphasis in those emails is on true content. The reason that the emphasis on true content is because he almost says this in so many words in one of the emails, that the true content is what they perceive to be doing the most to undermine the narrative that the White House favored at the time. So it's viewpoint discrimination targeting truthful speech that they perceive to be the most damaging to the narrative that they're pushing.
Which you have actual emails from the White House as part of your testimony today.
We have submitted those, yes.
And I would just, it's already in the record, but I just want to bring people's attention to that. As it relates to that, the Surgeon General also pressured big tech companies to only allow on their platforms administration-approved information about COVID. Could you go into a little detail about that?
That's exactly correct. What we see is what's probably an orchestrated pressure campaign involving the Surgeon General and the Surgeon General's office, and what their witness described in sworn testimony as their bully pulpit, to engage in a pressure campaign that reinforced the pressure campaign that was happening largely covertly from the White House, but also at key points became very public. For example, May 5th, 2021, July 15th and 16th, 2021, you have very public pressure from the White House. Then behind the scenes, you have emails where the Office of Surgeon General and the White House are, in a sense, teaming up with the social media platforms to pressure them to remove the information that they thought was unworthy of First Amendment protections.
And I've only got a little less than a minute, but could you use the remainder of your time to talk about the more inappropriate ways that the administration sought to control information related to COVID and vaccines?
Yes, there's a whole series of these that are set forth in my written testimony. You have the pressure campaign from the White House that involved both public and private components. That was executed in, as I said, kind of in tandem with a similar pressure campaign from the Surgeon General's office. But also you see both extensive evidence of federally induced censorship out of NIAID under the leadership of Dr. Fauci, and also the CDC, who we haven't mentioned today. You see the CDC both having meeting after meeting after meeting and flagging specific content, individual posts in large numbers saying, be on the lookout for this. This is what we, the CDC, want you to censor. And you see the platforms responding by kind of deferring to the CDC and allowing the CDC to dictate what Americans can and cannot say on social media.
My time's expired. Thank you for being here today, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank the gentleman yield back. The chair now recognizes Mr. Garrett.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications so every time I put out a video, you can know about it. It'll come up in your feed. Hit that like button if you liked it. And be positive. Peace.